The night I found the second key, I almost put it back. It was taped inside the hollow curtain rod in my mother's bedroom. Who even hides a key there? I remember standing on her old wooden chair, stretching up in my socks, dust falling into my hair, thinking, Emily, you are 34 years old. You should not be climbing furniture in your dead mother's house like you're in some low-budget mystery movie. But I'd already found the letter 3 weeks earlier, the one from my dad, the one that said in that painfully familiar handwriting, I know she isn't mine, but I will love her as my own. So at that point, curtain rods didn't feel dramatic. They felt expected. If you've ever had that moment where your entire childhood tilts sideways, where memories you thought were solid start feeling like they're made of paper mache, then you know exactly what I mean. And before I go further, if family secrets and slow burn reckonings are your thing, subscribe to Her Untold Revenge. This story, it's not about screaming matches and slamming doors. It's about what happens after the truth settles in your bones. Okay, let me rewind for you. My name is Emily Shaw. I'm 34. I grew up in Cedar Hollow, Illinois, in a house with white siding and a porch swing that creaked like it had opinions. My dad, Greg Shaw, was steady, solid, the kind of man who'd fix your car without being asked and then pretend it was no big deal. My mom, Linda, was charm and calculation wrapped in floral perfume. I didn't see the calculation part until much later. Dad died 10 years ago. Pancreatic cancer, fast and cruel. Mom died this fall, stroke, sudden, no goodbye. Cleaning out her house felt like walking through a museum exhibit of my own life. Every drawer had a version of me in it. Old report cards, dance recital programs. A chipped mug that said, World's Okayest Mom, my joke gift from college. She'd kept it. Then came the mirror, then the letter, then the phone number, then Thomas Beckett saying my name before I could speak. You already know that part. What you don't know is what came after the memorial. After Pamela tried to slide that sympathy card around with legal language buried on the back like some kind of grief time land grab. After Thomas stood in that living room with those blue-gray eyes that matched mine in a way that made my stomach drop. After I read Dad's letter out loud and the air shifted, you'd think that would be the explosion, the climax. Cue dramatic music, right? It wasn't. The real shift happened in the quiet days that followed, because when the shock wears off, you're left with logistics and emotions. And rooms that still smell like your mother. The key I found in the curtain rod fit the basement filing cabinet. Now, I had already seen the mineral rights paperwork, the LLC filing with Harmon Holdings, the neat little signature that wasn't quite right. Margaret had filed the probate challenge. Pamela had retreated into tight-lipped silence. Derek had stopped showing up. But the filing cabinet, that was personal. Inside were 3 folders. One labeled Evelyn Original Deed. One labeled, in my mother's looping handwriting, Just in Case. I sat cross-legged on the basement floor with the overhead light buzzing faintly and opened TB first. I don't know why. Maybe because I already knew it would hurt less than the last one. Inside were copies of letters, not from Thomas, from my mom, letters she had written to him in 1992 and 1993. They weren't kind. You will not disrupt my family. Greg is her father. You will not confuse her. If you show up again, I will make sure you regret it. My chest tightened as I read them. Not because I was shocked she'd kept him away. I already knew that. But because she'd kept copies. She had archived her own ultimatums like trophies. There was one line that stuck in my throat. She is better off without you. I closed my eyes and pictured Thomas sitting in his workshop, sanding wood in steady strokes, waiting 11 years for a phone call because my father asked him to. Better off without him. Was I? I don't know. That question still doesn't have a clean answer. Then I opened Just in Case. Inside was a handwritten ledger. Royalty payments, dates, amounts, not just the checks Pamela received, but the split my mother had taken before she died. Every quarter, like clockwork, she had known exactly what that land was worth, exactly what she'd done. There was a final page at the back, no heading, just a paragraph. If this ever comes out, Pamela will take the fall. She pushed hardest. I only followed. I stared at that sentence for a long time, because suddenly, the story I'd been building in my head shifted again. Yes, Pamela had been greedy, aggressive, opportunistic. But my mother? My mother had been strategic. She'd written herself a quiet exit plan. I laughed. It wasn't funny. But it was that hollow kind of laugh that escapes when you realize someone you loved was always 10 steps ahead. That night, I drove to Millbrook without calling first. Thomas was in the workshop, radio humming low. He looked up when I walked in, saw my face, and immediately turned the music off. "What happened?" he asked. I handed him the folder. He didn't rush. He read slowly, jaw tightening but controlled. When he finished, he set the papers down carefully, like they might shatter. "She was scared," he said finally. I blinked at him. Of what? Losing control. That stopped me. He leaned back against the workbench. "Your mother grew up with nothing steady. Her father left. Her mother scraped by. She learned early that if you don't control the narrative, someone else will." I folded my arms. "So that justifies stealing from my grandmother? Cutting you out?" "No," he said gently. "It explains it." I hated that he said that, because it made it harder to keep my anger clean and sharp. Grief is messy like that. You want villains and heroes, but sometimes you get people. Flawed. Afraid. "Did you ever hate her?" I asked. Thomas shook his head. "No, I resented her. But hate takes more energy than I was willing to give." That line stayed with me. Margaret pushed forward with the civil claim. Pamela's lawyer tried to argue that Evelyn had understood the transaction. The handwriting expert dismantled that. Bank records surfaced showing the royalty deposits. Pamela settled before it went to trial. She agreed to repay a substantial portion. Not all. Her lawyer negotiated hard, but enough to establish the record. The money went into an account under my name. I used part of it to establish a small scholarship at Cedar Hollow High in Evelyn Shaw's name for girls pursuing environmental or agricultural studies. It felt right, like returning something to the soil. The day the scholarship was announced, I stood in the high school auditorium and spoke about land stewardship and family legacy. I didn't mention fraud. I didn't mention betrayal. But I saw Donna in the third row, nodding quietly. She knew. Pamela never apologized. She sent one email, 2 sentences. "You've made your point. I hope you're satisfied." I didn't respond. Because satisfaction wasn't the word. Peace was closer. Thomas and I found our rhythm in small things. Coffee on Saturday mornings, hardware store runs. The first time he called me M without hesitating, I noticed. He noticed me noticing. We both pretended we didn't. One afternoon, we were installing shelves in my living room. Properly leveled this time, thank you very much. And he said, "Greg loved you fiercely." I swallowed. "I know. He came to see me because he didn't want you to lose everything if the truth came out." I smiled softly. "That sounds like him." Thomas nodded. "He wasn't trying to replace me. He was protecting you." I realized then that I didn't have to choose between them. Love isn't a limited resource. It doesn't shrink when divided. On the anniversary of my dad's death, I visited his grave. I brought both letters, sat on the cool grass, told him about the scholarship, about the workshop, about the crooked shelves. "I know you chose me," I whispered, "and I choose you back." The wind moved through the trees like an answer. As for my mother, I'm still untangling her. Some days I miss her laugh so sharply it physically aches. Other days I remember that ledger and feel that old sting. Both are true. And here's what I've learned, if you're still with me. The truth doesn't neatly wrap itself in a bow. It arrives like a storm, rearranges the furniture of your life, and then leaves you standing there asking, "Okay, now what?" Now you build. Slowly, intentionally. You decide who gets access to you. You decide what legacy means. You decide whether secrecy continues or stops with you. I chose to stop it. My name is Emily Shaw. I am 34 years old. I am Greg's daughter. I am Thomas's daughter. I am Linda's daughter. All of it. The good, the complicated, the painful. And I am no longer afraid of opening locked drawers. If the story felt a little too familiar, if you're holding a thread in your own life and wondering whether to pull it, I won't tell you it's easy. It's not. But I will tell you this. Clarity is worth the discomfort. If you connected with this, subscribe to Her Untold Revenge. Share this with someone who needs to hear that setting boundaries isn't betrayal, it's self-respect. And if you've uncovered a family truth that changed you, tell me. I read every comment. Sometimes the bravest thing we do isn't exposing the secret, it's surviving what comes after.